Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. Today we had Dark Ramuh released to global, so I wanted to go over a little bit about the Esper and the Vision card just to help people better understand what he does best, where he lands up compared to other Espers, and what that Vision card means for some of the balance and potential you can now do with Lightning and Wind units. So we're going to kick things off here with an Esper analysis, and we're going to just do a simple side-by-side comparable on two different Espers and kind of get a feel for where Dark Ramuh really has his niche, if you will. So if we're going to compare him to Bahamut, which is known as kind of the de facto best magic Esper overall, if we look at their stats initially, Bahamut does have a little bit more on the HP side of things, about 70 more HP. The rest of the stats are relatively in line, about 16 more magic, not terribly material in my opinion. Dark Ramuh does have 1 extra agility point and 6 more luck, but I don't think that 6 luck really means much. But they do different things with the status ailment resistant as well, where Bahamut is 25% to immobilize, which is a little more prevalent with Eliza currently being pretty meta, and Dark Ramuh having paralyzed, but again, that's also not as prevalent now, but certainly could be in the future. So stat-wise, overall, relatively the same in my opinion. I don't think there's necessarily any material differences here. Now, when we look at their board and compare them, they actually have a ton of overlap on a bunch of nodes already. They both have magic attack 15, human killer 25, crit rate 15, accuracy of 7, evocation damage of 19, and TP of 7%. So there's already a ton of overlap there from a bunch of the modifiers and some of the other smaller attributes. Now, where they start to differentiate themselves is on some of the resistances here, where Dark Ramuh has 25% slash resistance. Bahamut is 15% to either magic or strike. Now, Dark Ramuh also has 15% earth res, but because he's a lightning Esper, he already starts at -10, which means if you were to use these nodes, you really only end up at net +5. So this is where you see your first real differentiation here in terms of what the resistances are, which are kind of important. Resists matter. Now, go down more on the board, there's some other unique differences here. Ramuh has the 15 water killer. Bahamut's got 25 beast killer instead, but this is where you finally see the biggest difference in potential, where Bahamut has the 25% magic stat and Dark Ramuh's 15 lightning attack. So obviously, Dark Ramuh is a little more oriented on the modifier side of things, and economically speaking, obviously a little more for lightning type units. Bahamut's 25% magic is a little more universal in that it can apply to all units, not just lightning units, if you will, and skews a little bit more toward healers, where they may not always care about modifiers of their attacks if they're just healing a lot, in which case their magic stat is the most important thing. So I don't think either one is better or worse. Offensive output, I actually think they're about the same. It's really just about these resistances, in my opinion. They also do have 7 evade and 7 crit evade, but yeah, in my opinion, it's the resistances and just that slight differentiator between the 25% magic and the 25 lightning attack, depending upon who you're using it on. But there is another lightning magic oriented Esper, and that is Europa. So again, if we're comparing stats here, kind of the same idea, relatively close. A little more HP on Europa than Dark Ramuh. Same thing as Bahamut with a little more magic stat. Dark Ramuh is faster by 2 agility points, and I do think that's noteworthy when you talk about, you know, agility tweaking and who goes first. Technically 13 more dexterity. I don't think that's groundbreaking. So again, overall, relatively the same in terms of stats and materiality, in my opinion. They obviously also have 2 different kinds of status element resistances here, where Europa is 25% to blind. But then when we look at the boards, kind of the same idea. There is a fair amount of overlap on many of the modifiers here. Now, these are reorganized. It's not the exact same nodes, but you can see they have similar nodes for lightning attack, magic attack. Europa technically has more water killer, but already starting off pretty similar. When you look at the resists, kind of the same idea here. Europa is 15% to pierce and or missile, whereas Dark Ramuh is the 25 to slash. So again, just 2 totally different types of resistances. Europa also has 25 beast killer, and this is where I think Ramuh has some of the advantage of having 25 human killer. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But then finally, the crit rate and crit evade, they kind of just flop them around in terms of what the percentages are. But the biggest differentiators here between the two is the resistances you can get, but also the human killer of 25 for Dark Ramuh, where that was equal on Bahamut, but that is not equal here on Europa. And that's important because human killer, for PvP perspectives, is obviously a lot more applicable, A, to non-lightning units, where they can just use human killer. You don't have to worry about lightning attack up. But B, it also matters because of the attack type, where it scales off of any kind of attack type. It doesn't have to be just magic, it's all attack types. So what are some of the Esper takeaways, in my opinion, high level? It's not necessarily a massive upgrade over some of the top tier damage Espers. As we've seen, they're pretty similar in what they have for modifiers, what they have for stats overall, but it does add a ton of party flexibility now that you have a few comparable Espers, particularly from the agility perspective, where you don't need to pick and choose who gets Bahamut as like the best magic Esper. You now have someone who can be kind of comparable. So as an example, Resnick can now take Bahamut as the magic percent. It's going to help her heal more, and you can put Dark Ramuh on a damage dealer, and you're not going to notice any drop off in your party, as opposed to having, let's say, Bahamut on one and something on another. It sounds small, but as we get more into this like lightning magic emphasis, having more magic-oriented espers certainly does help. Now, Dark Ramuh's biggest uniqueness, in my opinion, is the 25% slash resistance and the highest agility at 20. Again, 1 or 2 points may not seem like a lot, but when it's the difference in turn order, it means a lot. The other big thing here is Dark Ramuh also offering the 25 human killer, which allows for more non-lightning application of the Esper, where you can put him in other magic damage dealers, at least compared to Europa, let's say. And obviously that it scales off a variety of other attacks, not just magic attacks. So for instance, someone like Ibarra having the 25 human killer, that's going to apply to her slash type attacks and her magic type attacks. So obviously some extra flexibility there. So it's not that he's terribly unique or does anything amazing. It's really more just the change up in the resistances, the extra magic oriented Esper to throw into a magic oriented team, a little extra for agility tweaking, and another magic-oriented Esper that has 25 human killer. Now, Diabolos does have that slash resistance that we're talking about, but obviously far more oriented for dark units and way slower comparatively. Now, when we look at the vision card analysis, this is obviously a little complex to think about the ramifications because of how many iterations you can make of it. But if we look at the stats and the metrics, now if we look at the main vision card slot, 462 HP, 4 defense, 3 spirit, 184 magic, 40 dexterity. That's a ton of awesome stats for a vision card. For the lightning units, the unit effect is 10 AoE resistance and 10% HP. Awesome additions for their survivability. For lightning and wind on the unit, it's missile res 10, spirit pen 20, and a decrease of evasion rate 5. Now, that decrease in evasion rate really means nothing for lightning. They don't have any evade units, and even wind, they've kind of gone away from their evade builds, so that's not a massive nerf. Now, the party effects, though, for lightning and wind, magic 50%, slash res 10%, and earth resistance 15%. This does create some interesting matchup potential, particularly when you're talking about stacking earth resistance. We'll get to that in a second. Now, I just want to show you what the stats look like if it is on the subvision card slot. And some things change significantly. Not all of them do. Most of these stats do get cut in half. The magic one gets cut a lot more, down from 184 down to 55. The AoE resistance also takes a big hit, going from 10 to 3. But the rest of the metrics here mostly in line with either being halved or a little bit above the half, where the missile res is cut in half, the spirit pen is cut in half, the magic is cut in half, and the same thing with the slash and the earth res. Now, 25% magic is still very material, so this card certainly still functions relatively well on a subvision card slot. But let's compare what's available to the elements in terms of some of these party effects, in terms of what already exists, what kind of overlaps, where does this have an advantage over other vision cards, yada yada. So if we're looking at the magic 50%, the slash res 10, and the earth res 15, that's the party effects. And I'm going to look at UR comparisons only. There are a couple of fringe MR cards, but I don't see them used often enough that it's worth an apples to apples comparison. Regular Ramuh obviously comes to mind first and foremost, where this gives magic a 50%, and it's not mono element lock. This is for any comp. They can do magic 50%. Stat-wise, obviously far less than what Dark Ramuh offers. And the party effect of max damage 2500 may seem kind of niche to PvE content, but hear me out. That actually has some great ramifications for lightning damage dealers. We're going to see that in just a minute here. Now, another one that kind of overlaps in a slightly less degree is Scorpion Sentinel, where it offers slash res of 20%. If you were to use this in the subvision card slot, it's slash res of 10, so you get some comparability there. And although Scorpion Sentinel is one of the best lightning vision cards, obviously if you're running Dark Ramuh, you're probably focused a little more on a magic-oriented team, which means you're not going to miss out on the attack 50% per se. So Dark Ramuh is kind of a nice blend of the two of these in terms of vision card economy, if you will. Now, from a wind perspective, the Jaden Vision card is really one of the only ones here that has something comparable with the slash res of 10%. The Downtime Vision card, which we'll talk about in a second, also has 20% slash resistance. The other one that's kind of similar, but not as much, is the More the Merrier card, from the perspective that it's human killer of 25 with magic attacks. And although you can't really analyze what's worth more, 50% magic or human killer 25, it's all really dependent on your modifiers, your team, way too many factors. 50% magic obviously also helps your healers, whereas human killer does not. But from an offensive standpoint, it's close enough that it can be thrown in this discussion, but it's also got the earth res of 20. The big thing here, though, is it's locked to wind, and so is in the Jaden Vision card, that these are completely mono element. At least with Dark Ramuh, you still get many of these benefits, but they are the cross element. And then finally, wind has no 50% magic vision card. Now, Typhon, magic attack 25, again, is kind of comparable. It really depends on your comp. So it's nice that wind finally actually has a true 50% magic card that can also pair with Ramuh here, who is, as we said, not mono element locked. So both lightning and wind can now go dual 50% magic cards, 25% magic in the subslot. That's a lot to digest, but let me recap this for you. What does Dark Ramuh really do strategically for you then as a vision card? The dual element flexibility to have a lightning unit in the party without getting hard countered by an enemy earth team. Now, this is obviously most prevalent for people who like to do trap defenses, where show a lightning unit slot 1 and then have 2 wind units slot 2 and 3 in the hopes that your lightning unit will attract earth teams. Those secret wind units will obviously demolish the ensuing earth units, but then again, this 15% earth res on the vision card, and you can get earth resistance other ways for your lightning unit as well. Golem, as another example, has another 25%. HP Trust Stones give you another 5%. Trust Stone passive of 7%. So there's ways that your lightning unit actually won't get as hard countered as you might think. It's a way that you can still blend them together. And then obviously if you're trying to mix and match magic damage dealers potentially, or supports, I think a great example would be if you're running a wind comp and you want to use Resnick, you can throw Resnick in here with Dark Ramuh and obviously still blend them really well. Resnick does a lot of things differently than someone like Halloween Leela or Ayaka does, so you can get pretty creative with what you want to do for the overlap between the elements. Now, another big upside here, it gives Wind a 50% magic vision card without having to use regular Ramuh. Dark Ramuh is objectively better than regular Ramuh in my opinion, so if you were using regular Ramuh to get magic for your Wind team, you now have a new alternative, or both of them together, objectively stronger when pairing that. Overall better slash resistance when combined with Scorpion Sentinel, as we saw, or the downtime, or any of the other slash resistances, as well as the Esper, which you saw has 25% slash resistance. Although slash res is easily penetrated, so debatable the actual value of that, but definitely situationally important for certain breakpoints, particularly for some of the units that have negative slash resistance, which some of them do, so this obviously helps skew them to go positive. It also is really impactful for a lightning unit survivability, in particular for the unit effects, and can't underrate that. 10% missile res, 10 AoE, resist 10% HP, 462 HP on the card, 4 defense, 3 spirit. That's a lot of bulk for one lightning unit, so this is an excellent vision card to bulk up one unit in particular, particularly magic units who may be kind of fragile. And finally, it also jacks up lightning's magic potential with those two 50% magic vision cards now. And although many elements do have 2 of them, there's a really interesting wrinkle here. It's because regular Ramuh's 2500 damage limit up for lightning units actually can make a big difference. It stays at 2500 if it's the subvision card. That number does not get diminished at all, which means, as an example, let's say Snow has 12,500 HP or 13,000 HP, which he typically does. Lightning magic units can outclap him for 15k damage pretty easily because they have the damage limit up now. So having that subvision card means that lightning units can easily surpass that damage limit threshold, which when it comes to potentially one-shotting a magic weak tank like Snow, that obviously has potential impact. That's kind of in a nutshell. There's obviously some complexities to how these Espers get min-maxed, but this is definitely a nice addition for a variety of reasons, as we've seen, not only just for party flexibility and what you can get for Espers, him having the fastest agility of what we were comparing. It's another 25 man-eater magic-oriented Esper. The vision card obviously gives some unique combinations between lightning and wind and what they do for potential magic statistics. And overall, probably not going to notice it a ton in today's current state of the game, where again, it's not like Earth is really dominating anything, so it's not like you need to hard counter them, nor are we seeing a ton of water prevalently, so it's not like you need lightning to hard counter them. But at the end of the day, just being able to make an objectively great comp, regardless of element counters, is still important, and Dark Ramuh can be a vital function for that, where if you just want to make a lightning team that can beat the majority of other elements, Dark Ramuh is going to be an excellent part of doing so. So that's the review in the nutshell for now. Hopefully this got you thinking a little more about it. In terms of pull recommendations, I never like to make them because I think it's too unique to what your Visior situation is, what your planning situation, what you have for elements already. I can absolutely understand why people would pass on this banner though, given that we're about to have Shadow Links as the global exclusive, a potential winter unit, the Dragon Quest collaboration potentially coming up soon. So him having a pretty expensive pity, I can understand why you might have forgo him in the present, but no doubt he's going to be a great chess piece in the overall broader scheme of the game. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll talk to y'all soon.